Welcome to another episode of What Hi-Fi Insider, where we go behind the scenes and also try and get if there are any scenes happening at the brands. Today, I have a very special guest with me. He is an acoustician, and that means he doesn't just hear sound; he actually sculpts sound. So when most of us are discussing bass, treble, and mid-range, he's actually worried about how a bowling ball sounds when it falls on the bowling alley. He does have a very odd job, but he does deal with the architecture, with the invisible architecture of sound. And he is Mr. Fenil Mehta, the CEO and director of Soundtight. Hi, Fenil. Thank you for joining
Hey
us.
Nishan, thank you for having me. Um, First, I'd like to say it's a wonderful show,
Thank you.
and it's good to have you over in Gujarat. Gujarat really doesn't have such kind of exposure to our industry, and I wish you lots of luck with the show, and hope you keep doing this every year, year on year.
Thank you so much.
Uh, as far as acoustics goes, it's a subject which is highly misunderstood,
It is, which is why
and
we are here.
yeah. But I think slowly, with time, the industry is understanding the subject, trying to learn the subject, and even the consumer base or the end user is understanding the importance of having good acoustics. And I think there's a lot of work to be done on it yet, but whatever you started with your podcast series is a real good first step.
So let's dip into the deep end. And I'm asking this because even I've experienced this personally myself. Okay. So a lot of the times, even with a bad sounding system or with a bad sounding room, you play a song that you've heard plenty of times before. Maybe it's one of your favorites in the playlist. And somehow it doesn't sound as bad as a new song in the same system, in the same room. So, my question here is, do we hear really with our ears or with our brains?
Okay. So, see, the problem is that most people, not meaning to, undermine anyone's listening abilities, but for them, it's more about the emotion, the connect to a particular song. It brings back their memories, and that is why when you keep listening to the same song again and again, your mind starts filtering out the the flaws or the space,
The
the
irregularities.
irregularities in
Yeah.
sound, and you immediately connect with the music. But the moment
Which is the
you
part when you listen with your brain.
with the brain, yeah. Uh, Also, of course, your heart influence is there because that connect
Yeah.
is there. When you hear a new song, uh, you've really never heard something like that before. So that connect part is lost, and then you start getting analytical and you start analyzing things like detailing, like what electronics and the sound signature or what the room does to the sound. I think a lot of people try and listen to the same track in different circumstances or environment. But if you really want to analyze something, I suggest you should hear something you've never heard before.
Which would be the true test of how the room actually
Room
sounds.
actually is because fundamentally, once the sound leaves a speaker, it is in the analog domain, and the acoustics or the room or the space that encloses that sound is what is going to affect the sound the most
But you
before it
think
reaches the ears.
over the number of years that you have been dealing with acoustics, maybe a decade or more, has the perception of acoustics has it changed in the minds of the common man regarding how easy it is to install acoustic panels, or whether it can be retrofitted, whether it has to be done at the construction stage? How has the perception around acoustics changed?
Uh, so it's been a slow process. But I would agree that people are getting into it, are understanding it. The only place where it is lacking is exposure. And I believe that our industry also has a role to play there because we've not really went out and spread the knowledge or the information about acoustics, what kind of products would be available, how you can retrofit spaces for good sound. Uh, Also, certain basic fundamentals have never been explained to the integrator community who are actually going out and going to sell audio video products. If they start, spreading this knowledge about acoustics, then the end user will be able to, grab it or accept acoustics as an important part in the entire experience.
But it's such a black hole of acoustic science, right? And it's not something that you could make a mistake in a client's house and be easily forgiven. So also I think the room for error is very, very minimum, which is
Uh,
why I think there is more apprehension for a lot of people to get into it in the first place. If you don't know it, don't touch it approach.
I would agree to some extent. On the flip side, if you ask 10 acousticians what is the right thing to do, you'd probably get 11 answers because it's all physics, and everyone has a different understanding of how to treat the room. You and I, both of us, can design a room which both of them can be equally good, but still your room may sound different from mine because the role that acoustics plays. Uh, if a third person comes into that room, he may find both the rooms good. So there's no thumb rule to acoustics.
Right.
It's basically your knowledge, your understanding, and at the most your experience at treating certain. Say, suppose if you're talking about a commercial space or a restaurant, there are many times when you have a very noisy place where there's background music which is creating chaos, 50, 100 odd people sitting across the table talking, the sound of cutlery, the sound of plates, and it all becomes such a commotion that the owner of the restaurant doesn't realize uh, the issue unless it starts happening. So, as far as I am concerned, as an acoustician, I'd say everyone should get an acoustic consultant or a knowledgeable acoustician at the design stage rather than getting them after the place is done.
So they have a an open canvas to play with as well.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like when you bring in a designer, an architect or interior designer, you give them a plain canvas to work on.
Right.
That is precisely the stage when you need a good acoustician to join your team. That can help solve a lot of problems, which after getting the project completed may not be possible.
But at the same time, now it's become so accessible to go online, even on sites like Amazon, and just buy off the shelf acoustic panels. How effective are those, or are they just expensive wall art?
Okay, Google Guru. So, as you said, if you don't know the subject, it's better to leave it raw,
Untouched.
untouched. Because there are a lot of times when you copy paste things uh, from whatever you see online on YouTube videos or stuff like that, and you actually end up harming the sound more than doing anything good to it. So rather than doing that, if space doesn't permit, if budgets don't permit, if there is a lack of understanding, it's better not to do anything, like you said, rather than end up spoiling the sound.
Right.
These panels that you talk about, the egg crates and the
Just the foam pads
yeah,
that you stick
the
on the wall.
foam patches and the diffuser, different shape diffusers and all of that. Well, that's wall art. Unless it's calculated, unless you know what you're doing.
We've heard it from the horse's mouth. Okay, that is wall art. Do not spend or waste your money
Yeah,
on
yeah,
any of these
please
Amazon
don't.
DIY tricks.
It's better to have a simple frame with canvas and a good painting on it with some sort of little insulation behind it and have it as a wall art rather than buying expensive
Yeah.
panels and doing it.
Which is, in fact, it leads me to my next question, which was for 99% of the people who enjoy music or movies at home. What is the most basic form of acoustic treatment that one can do without actually hiring a professional acoustician?
See, the basic sense of one, the placement of your equipment, especially the speakers, some sort of, say, a rug or stuff like that, decent enough drapes, if possible, um, good furniture. Uh, say, I've in so many places I've seen that a bookshelf, I mean, a shelf with books inside
Yeah.
it, uh, does way better job than all these ready-made
As a
panels that you
diffuser,
get
yeah.
as a diffuser. Paper, uh, when in layers in a book, it does very good absorption. Okay, so I think some basic sense, simple knowledge, listening, having one left and one right ear rather than two left ears.
And also, I think just having symmetry in where you place your speakers would
Yes,
help, right?
symmetry, because if you see our human body, is a mirrored, unit. So if you have good symmetry in your room and your left side listens to almost a similar mirrored thing of what your right side listens to, that is going to give you a nice good image in the room. And I think some certain basic things is good enough. You really don't need to go over the board, especially when it's in living room scenarios or bedrooms. So if it's a bedroom, you already have a nice thick bed on which there's a lot of absorption in the bed itself.
Right.
Your pillows do the job, good drapes can do the job. So unless until it's a dedicated space like a cinema, a home theater, or an auditorium, I think some basic things can do the trick.
Do you think, culturally speaking, we also emerge from a place that governs our acoustical senses? Because I mean, if you go to Europe or anywhere in the
Hmm.
West, and the way the churches are designed with, with the organs,
Hmm.
which were designed to a certain spec in terms of how they should be sounding
They
in a particular
they were
church
meant to
space.
reverberate. Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah, yeah.
As opposed to our kind of music, which
Hmm.
is, Indian classical or
Hmm.
Carnatic classical, which was
Hmm.
designed for a very different kind of temple space.
Yeah.
You think that also has some bearing on how we perceive acoustics as a race?
I believe so. And just like you said, the Indian classical background, the cultural, so this has been coming through ages and years,
Yeah,
and
it's
time
generational.
is generation that it's been on. So and we are more used to listening to intimate setups, where in small bethaks you have a tabla artist or a violinist or a singer and a harmonium. That is a very closed feel that you have,
Hmm.
unlike what you said with churches, where you have a reverberant space and you need those organs to play in a certain manner. So I believe that does have a big effect on what we how we perceive music.
So, is there anything like the perfect frequency response in any room, or is that a myth?
It is a myth. It is a myth. And if there was a perfect response, and if like every manufacturer of acoustics or electronics claims that our speaker or our amplifier is a flat sounding speaker, then every speaker should be sounding the same. But that's not the case. So there's nothing like perfection. And in fact, the human brain likes listening to imperfections. We can, if I make you sit in a place where it's like perfectly flat response, you will not probably, you will definitely not enjoy that music.
Like being in an anechoic
Yeah,
chamber, for example,
yeah,
it's not
yeah,
a pleasant
yeah, like in
experience.
a
Yeah.
chamber. Yeah, so you need harmonic distortion to be able to enjoy music, and that is what we connect to easily.
So then, what are your views as a counterpoint to, DSPs or active matching to, a particular amplifier that you're using, or maybe Odyssey or Dirac room corrections? How are those effective, or maybe even more or less effective in your view, to a proper room being treated acoustically?
So if we're talking about say dedicated cinema, so first thing we need to understand is that acoustics is the fundamental. The moment, as I said, when the sound leaves the speaker, it enters into the acoustic domain. Okay, so unless you have your acoustics right, anything you do at the electronics level, be it DSP, be it
Room
a
correction.
room correction, any sort of things that you play in the digital domain, uh, is not going to affect as much as the analog or the acoustic domain is going to affect you. So if you have your basic fundamental acoustics right, in that case, a good DSP or a good room correction software is going to make a huge difference. And that is where you can actually fine tune very small details, achieve something which is very different from rest of the this thing.
So there
So
is no silver bullet. I mean, eventually you have to
mm,
at least have a basic requisite for a
you have to have
room.
because that is your fundamental. If your foundation is not good, you're not going to be able to build a good system on it.
But I know the reason I'm asking you this, and I'm sure even you must have faced this at at your projects, and some challenges that come across most integrators' way, is that when you do a very expensive house and you go into a living room which is very opulent, it has Italian marble, and very reflective artifacts all around the house or the room. The client obviously wants to buy something really expensive, but expects this magic bullet approach where you switch on Odyssey or Dirac and it should sound like a studio?
It is never going to sound like a studio. So, and for anyone who actually understands music, they know that it's not going to happen. As far as
How close can you get with the active DSPs though?
I have my apprehensions about it, but but I'd like to counter that with one understanding where we have not touched the design community with the acoustic understanding. So we need to spend more time as an industry with interior designers, with architects who design the spaces, give them some knowledge and information on material science, on how different materials behave, explain them the simple physics of wavelength and how sound travels, or how sound would behave after hitting a surface. If certain basics are explained to the design community and they take our advice at the designing level in terms of room ratios or certain heights, you may have seen in so many places where the huge magnificent spaces, but it's so reverberant that you cannot even talk to a guy standing 4 feet there. So I think certain understanding of scale, of spaces, of materials, if this is discussed with the design community, then the need for a DSP will reduce to a great extent. As far as the effectiveness of DSP is concerned, purists wouldn't want to get into it. It can help to some extent, but in most of the cases, I have noticed in an untreated room, it's better not to have. No, this is what my ears tell me, but it's better not to have a DSP in an untreated room and play simple, nice, good stereo music. I think you'll be happier listening to that.
Also, coming back to your own brand that you have been nurturing for so many years under Soundtight, I believe it is a very unique sort of product. It's not the typical on the wall acoustic panels that you just slap on. So, can you just tell us what exactly it is that you make?
Okay, before I come to that, a lot of people understand acoustics as soundproofing. That's like, a layman generalized
Yeah.
term, soundproofing. They don't understand the difference between sound isolation and acoustics of the inside of a room. So, sound isolation is what we manufacture. Now, where it comes into play is sound isolation is reduction or stopping of to and fro traveling of sound from any sort of a surface. Say it's a wall, and you have an acoustic space, rather a place where you're doing some sort of reproduction, and a place where you're not doing anything. So, the transfer of sound from one place to the other is what we check. The more silent you are in your room, the better it is to give you a darker background, a clearer canvas to play on. So, unless and until you have a really good silent room, you're not going to get the dynamics of a speaker. You're not going to get that clarity. There's always going to be some sort of disturbance, some sort of modulation between two
Right.
rooms. So
And
that
it's a
is
preconceived notion that, again, that kind of a treatment would only be required in a studio, in a production house, right?
so
But you
we
also
so
advocate that for residential
So,
purposes.
our products, there's a lot of application in commercial spaces, say auditoriums, cinema halls, residential spaces like home cinemas, offices, a lot of corporates and their conference halls. They need certain spaces where where there are kiosks and multiple uh, people sitting in the office. They don't want the sound to disturb each other. There are applications like, for an example, an interrogation room. Okay, wherever you need privacy, wherever you need silence. Also, to interrupt the first thing you said about bowling alley. So we just had one of these projects where there's a bowling alley on one of the top floors, and the offices below it were in a bad state. Every time someone throws a ball, there's like a big thud.
Yeah.
Everyone in the office feels. So we had to rip apart the ceiling of the offices, the underlay of the bowling alley. But eventually, we got them to a place where it's a manageable sort of a thing. So yeah, isolation is what we do. And that needs to be done at the initial levels. Isolation is not something where you can simply paste a panel on the wall and you can block sound. Stopping, blocking, or reduction or of transfer of sound is probably the hardest and the costliest affair in the industry in terms of acoustic treatment. A simple absorption panel can absorb sound, but it cannot block sound.
Right.
For blocking sound, you need density, you need mass, and you need space. So, say you come with a raw room to us, and you'll say, "Put something here," and I want to stop sound. That's not happening. You've got to dedicate some real estate to us, 5, 6, 7, 8 inches, depending on how much isolation you want on each wall. You'll need to give us a decent enough budget to be able to do it.
Always the most important
Yeah,
ingredient.
yeah. And so basically, Nishant, sound is vibration. When you have two surfaces touching each other, and if this is vibrating, the other one will, of course, vibrate. If you separate both of these, this vibration is not going to get transferred to this side. So isolation first means decoupling. So you decouple the surfaces. Second, it means damping the vibration. So you put some sort of a mass on this layer so that the vibration in itself reduces. That is the material that we make. Uh, so our material is made out of rubber. Uh, there are some additives like barium sulfide and lead and tungsten and all of that. These are heavy loaders which add mass to the material, and this material is then pasted inside the wall paneling. It is not a surface material, but it basically decouples and damps the vibration, and hence it checks the transfer of sound from one space to the other.
So potentially it can also be used at the OEM level for a speaker cabinet manufacturer.
Oh yes, yeah. A lot of OEMs do use this. There's also an application in the automobile industry for this, which has been doing it since years. A lot of high-end cars have their floors damped with such kind of material to reduce the road noise and the transfer of sound from the tires. So it's got multiple applications.
All right, and finally, without mincing words, without taking sides, without being biased, what is the best space in India that you have been to in terms of acoustics?
Oh, wow. I would say
You may need a new best friend after this, so
uh,
choose your words wisely.
no, no, I'd be right technically, not being diplomatic, but the best acoustic space as of what I have experienced is any sort of outdoor environment. An enclosed space is always going to be a problem, no
Now
matter.
you can't say that God has made the best room. Come on.
Yeah, but no, I mean there's a long way to go. Uh,
So you're
the,
saying you're not satisfied with a single space in India that really meets your high standards?
no, forget a job that anyone else has done. I'm probably not even satisfied with jobs that I've done because there is always scope of improvement. And as I said, acoustics is a subject where if you ask 10 acousticians what's the best, there'll be 11 replies to it. So I am yet to design the perfect space for my ears. I believe that's how it is.
Thank you so much, Fenil. That was another episode of What Hi-Fi Insider. If you're not happy with the sound of your system, you're not the only one. Even India's best acoustician is not happy with his own. So no love lost over there. Stay tuned for another interesting one coming up very soon.